Are on the air. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. I'm doing an Owen Benjamin impression. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Kabarett for our German nationalist friends. So I'm Dan Banas. With me is everyone's favorite German Shepherd. No,
I'm a
that's not
black lab,
yeah,
Dan. I'm a
black,
proud black lab, okay?
proud black lab. Yes, noble black lab.
A
Good,
loyal, a loyal, a loyal black lab.
loyal. Yeah, that's a great loyalty is a very important trait, I believe.
I agree, Dan.
Day and age.
The way maybe uh a company would be loyal to their customers. So as I was saying,
Hello.
hello. As I was
Internet.
saying, yeah, I know the internet's a
Yeah.
little shoddy right now, but let's just keep the train moving here. Uh, I was mentioning that loyalty, and you had agreed with me, is hard to come by. It's a great attribute to have, and I said it's similar to what you would want to see from a company towards their consumer base, you know. And I feel as though uh, Gillette has dropped the mark here. You know, they've dropped the ball.
Oh my gosh. What a nightmare this has been. So sorry. Let me see if I can get Good Boy back in here. You guys are still on, right? Yeah. Good gosh. I don't know what's going on, man. Everything is messed up. Ah. Okay. Okay, Good Boy has been invited. What we wanted to talk about was this this Gillette ad. So you guys know. But let's look at it anyway. Good God almighty. Good Boy, are you here?
I am. Let's take a look at this thing.
All righty. Let's do it. I have actually not officially watched it yet.
Oh, dude, it's brutal.
I'm sure
It's so well-meaning, but it is so brutal.
No, here's the thing. It's not well-meaning. None of these things are well-meaning. I mean, it's as well-meaning as, McDonald's trying to sell fatty nonsense to kids, I mean, it's like, this stuff is not good. It's bad. So I don't understand why people give it a pass when, like, companies that clearly don't care, do this stuff. So, okay.
Here we go.
Here we go. What? Let's see here.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it. It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Bro, sweetie. Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool, not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, man. Oh, shit.
and small.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
Someone treat each other, okay?
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
Hooray, we did it. Okay.
Right.
That is not well-meaning. That is just stupid garbage.
It's garbage. It is
it's
garbage.
Garbage. It's not, there's no apologetics for this nonsense. It's just stupid. They're selling mediocre razors, and the razors stink. They're not good razors.
I want you to do something real quick, though, Dan, before we continue this. I want you to go to that video, and I want you to dislike it.
Okay.
Okay? And then what we're going to do at the end of our hot take is we're going to go back and we're going to see if your dislike is still registered. Because I guarantee you it will not be.
Wow, that's fascinating. It'll be an official Kabarett dislike, too.
It will be official Kabarett dislike. We do not like that video. I would say.
Well, yeah, but also
Kabarett
will be signed in, as you can see, I think.
Yeah, sure.
As you can see here.
Best a man can get.
Dislike. Way more dislikes than likes. Yeah, so that's not it's not good. It's not okay. It's crap, you know. And I didn't like it. Didn't I'm not triggered. It didn't really bother me that much. I'm not angry. If I sound angry, I hope I don't. But it's not like blah, blah, blah. It's just stupid. It's nothing to do with the product, and I know that's common for advertising, but it's just not.
At the end of the day,
It's not refreshing. It's just old hat. It's just more of like every commercial is about how little girls are superheroes who can do anything, and then little boys need to be changed. No, they don't.
right. I think it's psychologically so unhealthy to kind of foster that sort of belief. A, B, you know, like you had mentioned, this is a commercial where it's like, well, what the fuck does that have to do with razors?
Yeah.
Like nothing. And you know what? People could say, oh, well, you know, good boy, I think you may be a little triggered by that because you clearly never mentioned something, a commercial like that where it doesn't necessarily focus on the product, but instead a moral sort of posturing as its selling point. I don't know you very long, but I don't think that's something you would do. You would be wrong, because I'll tell you what really upset me about like watch commercials or cologne commercials was this sort of like Don Juan spritz a little on his collar, and all of a sudden he has the lady in the black dress hanging all over him. I was like, what kind of nonsense? What does this have to do with cologne? Like, that's not. I get what you're trying to sell, but it's bullshit.
Right.
And this is the same thing. It's like, I get what you're trying to sell. This like whole, you know, toxic masculinity must be stopped by other men and put in check by other men. By the way, notice that this whole commercial is about men stepping in front of other men when they start acting the way women don't want them to act.
White knighting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just fostering that. So it's not like women can stand up for themselves here. It's the idea that men are still clearly the movers and shakers in the world, and they're going to be the ones that have to step in, which I totally disagree with, by the way. I don't necessarily think that, you know, women are completely devoid of agency and you know, can't step up and say something when something makes them uncomfortable, you know?
Obviously not.
Right? You know, and
so many times, and you know, oftentimes it's been great and the right thing to do. Sometimes it's just obnoxious harping or totally inappropriate showboating. You know, just like men can be obnoxious too. It's not that different.
Of course. I would also point out that there were some things in that commercial that, you know what, I would never consider myself a white knight or someone who has to like step up and do something when I think it has to be done. You know what? There are certain occasions where, yeah, I'll feel compelled to do something, but not out of like this sort of faux political. I don't even know what this is. It's truly, you're on one side of the culture war if you agree with this in totality. But I agree with about half of this. I don't like when men catcall women. I think it's rude and disrespectful. You don't shout at girls. You don't shout at girls. That's something you don't do. And it's like,
one thing though, I mean, you're a New Yorker. I'm not a New Yorker. So I honestly have never, hardly ever in my whole life. I lived in the Midwest, and then I've lived in super liberal, progressive-y, Southern California, and I like never see catcalling. It just never happens. Except, I mean, I know that it happens like in like Italy or Greece or whatever, and like these European countries where people pretend that like they're all like wonderful and evolved or something, but that's where it happens. I don't ever see it happen hardly ever in all of America. I mean,
well,
maybe
I have seen it happen, but I'll be honest with you, it's in working class neighborhoods. And by working class neighborhoods, I don't mean the ones that are essentially gentrified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a white upper class sort of I don't know. That's where you kind of find this whole like, oh my goodness, this sort of pearl clutching. Did you hear that? As he walked by, said, "Sup, beautiful," or something like that.
Right.
Which, by the way, I don't think is polite. I don't think it's. I wouldn't advocate for that sort of thing. But you'll find that more often in working class neighborhoods, where not for anything, the women in those working class neighborhoods know how to handle themselves a little bit.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And they're used to being able to snap back at the men in that neighborhood, and there's kind of a game that goes on between the two.
That's true.
And they kind of are a little more. You know what? I don't want to speak in complete generalities, but I'll just say this: I don't like when I hear catcalling. I think it's rude. I think it's disrespectful. It doesn't sit well with me. It's not polite. That doesn't mean I think it should be illegal or that we should start making razor commercials talking about the dangers of catcalling.
The funny thing is, I hear the one place I really have seen a lot of clear like sexism, and in terms of like, hey, let's celebrate men being radical, douchey goofballs or whatever. Historically, has been in commercials for stuff like razors or whatever, cologne or beer or whatever. That's it. Marketing people doing that. And so that's where I've seen that, and they try to promote that sort of attitude, and most people have all thought it was ridiculous. I mean, you can look at TV shows for years talking about how it's silly beer or Axe body spray commercials are. They're a joke.
Yeah, absolute joke.
That razor commercials, where it's like, the rugged man. That's where you see that sort of stupid, simplified thinking. So all of a sudden, the culture kind of shifts, or that doesn't sell as well as it used to. So they decide to take a different tact. But instead of saying, hey, we used to do things this way, and now we're doing it another way, they say, you think this way, and you need to change. It's like, no, you guys have been the ones, you stupid marketing douchebags, you're scummy, sleazy,
right. Yeah.
jackal.
Take a look in the mirror. You're the ones that have been perpetuating this crap for a while too. I never really connected the fact that a lot of those stereotypes stem from the marketing of companies such as Gillette. That's so true. That's so ridiculous. And there's a few things in that stand out to me as truly dangerous, though. And I think the big thing was when the two boys are playing and they're roughhousing, and this is considered an element of toxic masculinity, and the father has to come and break it up.
Right.
Now, I've seen boys play when it gets a little too rough.
Yeah.
Maybe the little one starts crying and the big one's kind of, hitting a little too hard. And then the father goes, hey, lay off. That's your little brother. Or like, hey, take it easy on him. He's half your size.
Yeah.
But boys do play. They do roughhouse. And that is part of the natural human existence for men. Like men roughhouse. Animals learn to play like that. They push each other. A lot of times you'll see it within the men, within the males of certain animal groups, where they're playing with each other, and pushing each other so that they can learn what they can take and what they can't take, and who's the dominant one, and how to be kind of one of the guys, because you need to know that in the world you really do need to know how you stack up amongst your peers, and you start learning how to digest that dynamic through play. And that's not me talking. That's psychologists talking. I mean, that's it. This is such a case closed sort of thing. And to see it sort of ridiculed and put in the department of, oh, this is an example of toxic masculinity. And I may be wrong on this, but from what I understand, that was written by a woman. This whole thing is gynocentric.
Do you know for sure the ad was written by a woman? Or
from what I understand, it was written by a woman who had another campaign done that celebrates, empowered women. I think the ad that was brought to my attention that she had written, empowered out of shape women to participate in sports.
Right. I mean, look, that's fine, but maybe get in shape. Focus on getting in shape before you compete, perhaps, just for your own sake, I would think. But whatever.
But you know what they didn't do, and this is a point made by the other YouTuber that I had seen. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't harass these women and shame them for the shape they were in before they said you can do it, you can change, or you can transform and do the difficult thing. The first half of this is all guilt.
Yeah, the thing that drives me crazy is just like the gaslighting they do, where if you say like, hey, you can see how this is all about, it's always championing and celebrating women being tough and saying men have a problem with them and they're not good. And people are like, no, what are you talking about? That's crazy. It's like, dude, I think you see it. I don't believe you that you don't see that at all. And then they gaslight. They pretend that you're just crazy or you have a problem, and that's what drives me crazy. It's like, just admit that that's the angle you're taking. I don't. Everyone knows. Everyone sees it now. Everyone knows. And it's at this point in this commercial, it's like it's a joke. They've been doing this for like 3-4 years. That stupid Ghostbusters movie came out. I guess 16? Yeah, 2.5 years ago. And it's been happening at least 1.5 2 years before that, which incidentally, I don't know if you heard this, but as of yesterday, they're making another Ghostbusters movie.
I did hear about that. I saw the trailer. It was very exciting. The old Ghostbuster mobile with the original soundtrack, like the original music. I was transformed back to a little kid in Brooklyn when I used to watch it with the lights off, and the librarian scene where the music would kick in, that little drum beat in the background. And I was transformed, man. I was transported. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, this is gonna be great.
Oh man, I bet as a Brooklyn kid, that movie was particularly potent for you.
Oh, I thought the whole thing was real. I thought every movie made with the backdrop of New York City had to be real. So movies like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Spider-Man was based off of real accounts. But sadly, I was mistaken that none of that is true.
Documentary.
But, it was essentially all documentary.
But yeah, the funny thing is, though, of course, they're publicizing it as a direct sequel to the first 2 films that has no connection to the 2016 film, which is very interesting indeed, as we know, because I'm sure you're well aware, for the year leading up to the film and about 3 to 6 months afterwards, it was a blitzkrieg, a marketing blitzkrieg about how this was the new Ghostbusters. If you don't like this Ghostbusters, you're a horrible person. This Ghostbusters, and they're women, and they're strong, funny women, and blah 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 blah. So the whole thing fixated on their gender, and that it's women, and they're wonderful, and you need to like it, and anyone who doesn't like it is a bad guy. And it was a huge flop. Obviously, it made
obviously, like, you don't even need to say anything more. You set it up perfectly. It's like, and it was a huge flop. And that's not funny for me, because I'm a big fan of some of the comedians in that movie. I'm a big fan of Kristen Wiig. I'm a huge fan of her. I think she's absolutely fucking hysterical. And I don't want anything she touches to like fail. And at the same time, Melissa McCarthy is absolute dynamo. I think she's so funny.
Well, I thought Bridesmaids was a great.
Honestly, one of the best comedies of the decade when it came out, and I will stand by that.
Yeah, I thought that at the time, and I do think it's a little too long, like almost every Judd Apatow produced film. But I can't watch it anymore because the Ghostbusters thing ruined basically everything that has to do with Paul Feig. Because in the marketing, in the interviews, he just came off as such a sanctimonious prick. It came off as a miserable person and a mean-spirited and at the same time, cowardly studio shill.
Well, speaking of which, you know, I agree with that statement completely. What's your opinion on Judd Apatow throwing a little bit of shade towards, not even a little bit, basically critiquing the pirated set from Louis?
I don't know what
like
he said about it.
Judd Apatow.
Yeah, what did he say about it?
I could pull up the tweet if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, so the hilarious thing about this Ghostbusters, now they're like, after all that, the studio put in hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing and promoting this as the new Ghostbusters. This is it. Forget about what came before. It was a huge flop. It lost the studio a bunch of money. And now, less than 2 years later, or I guess a little more than 2 years later now, they're saying, this is the Ghostbusters. And it's just the original Ghostbusters again. And so they're trying to have it both ways. Just like the Gillette people. That's the thing. These people are just cowardly scumbags who won't take accountability for anything and just push it on you. You're the bad guy if you don't like our crappy Ghostbusters or our crappy razors. First of all, no man worth his salt shaves with a Gillette razor. Gillette razors are very lame, bad razors. I can grow a nice, full, rich beard, and I have a chrome razor. You know, it's a real metal razor. That's, you know, with blades that I buy separately.
Sure.
And they're great. You know, I'll have it forever. I'm not every 2 months spending $20 on a razor. I spent $50 about 3-4 years ago, and that's the only razor I'll ever have. It's amazing. It's like, you know, I feel like a guy living in 1880 or something. It's the way to do it. And,
it is the way to do it. I think a lot of people are jumping on that bandwagon, or at least going the chic route. You know,
I think that makes sense. That makes sense. That's probably Gillette is feeling that pain, and so they're like, okay, all real men are getting real razors. So who can we market towards? Lame pussy men and women.
Well, so funny you should mention, like, who do you think the demographic is? Because when I was a kid, like you had mentioned, what did they gear towards? Like, hey, you know, young kids, like, oh, this is, you want like the women all over you, that kind of a thing, right? It's gearing you towards that sort of a thing.
That's what
and now I think they're doing the same thing. I think they think that these young millennials or these young Generation Z or whatever they are a bunch of, you know, far left, you know, loudmouths. And the truth is, they're not speaking to the majority. They're speaking to the very loud minority. So they're going to lose money on this. I guarantee it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they got people talking. I guess that's something. I mean, it's just this short-term sort of thinking that has been very prevalent in recent years. And they think just dividing people and getting them talking in controversy is good. But it's just not anymore. I think it probably worked briefly. But you can see, like, places like BuzzFeed have even really cut back on that sort of stuff because people don't like it. It doesn't work. It's not selling. So I don't think it's going to be very effective. This is really, you know, not surprising coming from Judd Apatow. I used to get like shocked or anything, but he's not. He's, you know, I'm sure he's talented in a way, but he's not super funny. His movies are not good anymore. He's
certainly not a comics comic
with everyone.
Yeah, you know, he's certainly not a comics comic, and I also think it's pretty embarrassing the amount of comedians that are bashing Louis. It's like
Andy Richter, another one, but it's all these guys that are not super funny. Is the thing. Like Andy Richter has clearly just you know, ridden coattails for the vast majority of his career without contributing a whole lot comedically. And I mean, I honestly don't like I never had a problem with Andy Richter. I always thought he was pretty cool. I used to think Judd Apatow was great, but they're the ones that have just turned into these bitter scumbags. Ironically, like Judd comes off as super bitter on Twitter all the time. You know, so saying Louis C.K. is all fear and blah 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 blah. No. Look,
I mean, have you seen Louis? It was a classic Louis C.K. bit. It was a classic Louis C.K. bit. And honestly, where is your sense of humor? If you don't find any of that stuff funny, you know, the fact that we get to laugh at the scariest, saddest things in the world, that's why I delved into comedy. I mean, it was because I was in a very sad place.
Yeah.
And you know what? As a kid, I found comic relief in people talking about even worse things. And you know what? Making me laugh in that space. And that's the beauty of comedy. Now, Judd Apatow, if he thinks that set is hacky, well, I don't think you know what hacky means.
Yeah.
And I really don't trust Judd Apatow and his in his opinion on comedy.
Host a stand-up night, and he was not funny. I mean, he granted he was, you know, Adam Sandler was there and Jonah Hill and Seth Rogen, and they were all funny. Judd Apatow has never struck me as particularly funny. I don't think he is particularly funny. I think he's a talented producer, and you know, he's made funny films. 40-Year-Old Virgin, hilarious. His first movie ever, of course, that he directed. You know, he produced Anchorman. It's fantastically funny. However, it is interesting how 40-Year-Old Virgin, very funny. The next movie that he directed, Knocked Up, funny. Funny. Then Funny People, which had its moments. Everyone agrees it's a pretty hit or miss film. This is 40, almost universally disliked. Trainwreck.
I didn't particularly enjoy. I thought it had a moment or two. Quite frankly, if it wasn't for John Cena, it would be almost unwatchable. And that's sad because I love Bill Hader. I fucking love Bill Hader, and I think he made it. I think he took the money on that one.
Bill Hader's one of the few guys. It's funny because Judd Apatow is the guy who, you know, I say this because he brought up bitterness, fear and bitterness. Bill Hader is one of the only comedians today who doesn't come off as fearful and bitter. He's just funny. He's not taking pot shots all the time.
I think he's an Okie, isn't he? Isn't he from like the Midwest?
I don't know. He comes off certainly as a Midwestern guy, and he's hysterically funny. Not like some super masculine. Like he does have that sort of like millennial kind of, you know, slightly effeminate thing. That's great. Yeah, Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's perfectly fine. It's not just being this like lame Judd Apatow
sanctimonious.
Oh
my God.
Yeah.
His shallow routine. He had this hacky, unfunny, shallow routine. If you think that's hacky, unfunny, or shallow, you don't know comedy if it hit you in the face. I mean, it's unbelievable. I will say, though, Talladega Nights is probably one of my favorite comedies of all time.
It's a hilarious. Talladega Nights is a great comedy. I mean, again, he produces this, but who knows exactly what that really means? You have Adam McKay in the driver's seat, a true comedic genius, who, you know, I mean, I don't love everything that he says or does. I think he's very obnoxious sometimes, but I'm not like this. This goes to show, like, this has nothing to do with like politics or anything like that. Adam McKay and I have very different politics. I went to an advanced screening of Vice. I thought it was very good. And I got to meet Adam McKay. I thought he was very cool. He's one of my heroes. I don't agree with everything that he says, and I think that he comes off as obnoxious, but he's a comedic genius, and his work is still good. Judd Apatow is not good, and he's just a mean-spirited, spiteful man. You know, I don't know what else to say. So,
speaking of men, I wonder how many people have disliked that video by now, and I'm curious if your dislike is still there.
Our dislike. This is Kabarett. Oh my gosh. I'm at it now, so let's bring it up. It is not registered. Can you see that? It's
I
not
see that it's not registered. It looks still gray to me.
okay. It
Let's
should
see
be
where that goes.
registered.
I know they keep removing mine on my private channel, so
So they obviously do care. You know, it's funny because they're always like, "Well, we don't care what you think." Well, you obviously do. You know, so oh well. Like, what were they expecting? Whatever. I mean, I used to kind of get like, I honestly used to get kind of like upset about this stuff. I'm like, why are they doing this stuff? It's not fair. I'm really not. It's comical because they just stink. You know, the vast majority of Hollywood is just obnoxious nonsense at this point. And it's great to just kind of take take a more zen approach and just step outside and watch it fall apart from afar, which it is doing. As we know, it's very funny because the Academy Awards nominations are going to be announced next week. They don't have a host. That's something else that's probably worth talking about.
they don't have a host still.
They don't have a host, and they won't have a host.
They announced that they will not have a host.
It's pretty much official at this point. It's almost certain that they are not going to have a host. They're going hostless.
Well, if you need proof that the left doesn't eat itself, the fact that they would go after Kevin Hart, I mean, give me a fucking break, would you please? Give me a fucking break. By the way, let's not forget that Hillary Clinton was against gay marriage for like when that joke came out. You know what I mean?
Obama was against gay marriage. You know,
come on. I mean, people change. And I think the changes we see with Kevin are probably a hell of a lot more legitimate than the changes we'll see from a politician on the campaign trail.
Yeah, Kevin comes across as very sincere to me, and my hunch is that he never had real problems with gay people or anything. He was just making a shocking joke, you know, like someone like, say, I don't know, James Gunn, you know?
Yeah, a James Gunn. That's pretty funny.
Hollywood decided to rally around, and Kevin Hart, no. Okay. Apparently, Hollywood is more than happy to overlook unfunny pedophile jokes, but unfunny to potentially moderately funny gay homophobic jokes. That's where they draw the line.
Speaking of which, I noticed something that when it comes to straight men insulting other straight men, we would sometimes call them the F word. Right? Yeah. You would say it sometimes. If you say it to your friends, you're saying it because you're kind of just ribbing them a little bit, and you usually have a laugh because you know it's not true. I mean, you know the guy's girlfriend, or you've helped him out when he's been through a breakup, right? So you're friends. So if you call him that, it's kind of like, I get to make fun of you. And it's okay to be vulnerable around me.
Right.
That's the other thing too. And that's what that social cue is. Now, I feel bad that, a lot of people can be offended by that. But that's why you don't go around calling everyone that thing. So here's the deal. If you were to call a stranger that or something like that, if a stranger called
or a gay friend of yours for that matter, like would you ever do that ever? I mean, right. I would think not, right?
Right, that's the point. So if someone shouted that word at me, the F word at me, like, hey, you're this, I would be offended by that, even though there's nothing wrong with being gay. You know what I mean? But like, I would be offended by that because that's insulting to me as a straight man. Yeah. It cuts to the core of what I am. And that's why I would never shout that to a gay man either. You know what I mean? That's why you don't do it. But it's interesting that when people are so flippant with the term incel as an insult, and it clicked for me. It's like, oh, that's exactly why the F word is insulting to me as a straight man. It's like, of course, it's like it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm not a homosexual. So like, oh, well, you're not homosexual. Why are you offended? It's like, because it's cutting to the core of what my sexuality is about, right?
Well, I
So
would say calling someone a fag is not is technically not as insulting as calling someone an incel.
I think they're just as insulting, and that's the ironic thing is,
Yeah.
like, no one has any problems calling, like Bill Maher called the guys that graffitied or edited his billboard
Yeah.
a bunch of incels,
Yeah.
and I was like, you might as well call them a bunch of fags at that point in time.
Yeah. But so the thing is though, like, if you're gay, as far as I can tell, like, you can't, that's not up to you. That's just what you are.
Right.
Homosexual is just what you are, and that's so just to call someone, like, even if you were to be like a jerk and be like, you hate fag or whatever, if you're a gay person, there's no reason to, you could just say, oh, you're an idiot, but there's no reason to really be upset about that. However, if you're an incel, if you're an involuntary celibate, that is not something that you are by choice, or by nature. You don't want to be that, and so it's like,
Yeah, it is
an actual
involuntary.
it's an insult about like your abilities as a person and so in a way I feel like it's more but they don't want to be, and so they're not happy with themselves. Like it almost certainly comes from a deep loathing.